Good morning, church. Good to see all of you. It's a bright, sunny day outside, and we're going to bring our joy and our praise and our worship in here. It's going to be bright and sunny in here. Was that a little too cheesy? That might have been a little cheesy. Anyway, will you guys stand up with us? Our God is uncontainable. He is indescribable. What a powerful, amazing, and great God we have. Of heights to the depths of the sea, creation's revealing your majesty. From the colors of fall to the fragrance of spring, every creature unique with a song that it sings, all exclaiming, indescribable, uncontainable. You place the stars in the sky and you know them by name. You are amazing, God. Who has told every lightning bolt where it should go, or seen heavenly storehouses laden with snow? Who imagined the sun gave source to its light, yet conceals it to bring us the coolness of night? None can fathom, indescribable, uncontainable. You place the stars in the sky and you know them by name. You are amazing, God. All powerful, untamable, awestruck we fall to our knees as we humbly proclaim. You are amazing, God. You are amazing, God. Yeah. All right, let's hear you, church. Indescribable, uncontainable. You place the stars in the sky and you know them by name. You are amazing, God. Incomparable, incomparable, unchangeable. You see the depths of my heart and you love me the same. You are amazing, God. You see the depths of my heart and you love me the same. You are amazing, God. You see the depths. You see the depths of my heart and you love us the same. You are amazing, God. Amazing God. You are amazing, God. Amen, church. You guys sound great. Have a seat this morning.
Well, good morning, everybody. It's so good to see you. Thanks for being here to worship with us at Center Point. My name's Tony. I'm the youth and outreach pastor here, and I wanted to get some info and updates and announcements to you. Good morning also to our live stream audience. We're glad that you're here. I want to start with my favorite announcement, or most favoritist. I mean, I know it's not real, but that's just kind of how I feel about it. Announcement to make here at Center Point from time to time. Over here on the far right side of the stage, we've got a flower up here on the pedestal, and the reason for that is celebrating the arrival of a new baby into the life of Center Point here. Chad and Mrs. Slavin had a new baby girl. Yay, congratulations to them. That is in celebration of Georgia Joelle. So she's gorgeous. You've probably seen her around maybe in the recent weeks. So Chad Misha, that rose is for you, and there's a gift also that we had seen out in the lobby and we brought close by. So that's for them to take home on the way, or worst case, Grandma, you make sure that they get it home. That'd be great. So we're celebrating with you guys. That is a fantastic, fantastic thing. Hey, speaking of the cutie, oh my gosh, that's just fantastic. Hello, good morning. I know, I just pointed you out in front of everybody at church. That's not nice. Sorry. To the other info and announcements, we do love that you're here. We love connecting with you. So use the card in the back of the seat that you'll find in front of you. Or if you're online, especially to support you through prayer, visit our website or the link that we just dropped in the live chat. We love to support you guys. We pray every single week over the cards and information we receive. The physical cards can be dropped in the boxes. They give you in boxes right by the doors on your way out. We always want to remind you that each and every week. We are still in need of some help for our welcome team. We've had some people respond. That's great. We could use a little bit more help. You can use that card there on the response side. It has an I'd like to help section. Check that. Make sure you have contact info there and drop it in the box. Or live stream viewers for today, you can send an email to the information spot that we just put into the live chat for you right there on your screen. Our life groups are launching. They're getting together. Last Sunday, we put almost 36 of them out in the lobby. They're still there. We'll be there for a few more weeks. We would love it if you would sign up for a few of those. That's not committing you to multiple. We just don't know exactly how these groups will form, and the logistics of them will fit with your personal schedule. So sign up for a few that grab your interest, and we'd love for you to do that today. So you can do that on the paper out in the lobby. In the bulletin, there's a little scan code that you can use your phone, kind of open up your camera, tap on the camera, and make it focus and follow that link. Or, again, for our live stream audience, follow the link that we just gave you there on screen. We're going to be launching them soon, and we'd love to have your interest and information there. We can't wait to connect you with other people, to deepen your relationships with each other. And frankly, it's just really getting nice outside, so it'd be great to be in a group to have some fun together. Next Sunday, there is a graduation open house party at the Villapando's house for Rebecca and Karis and Liam. They all graduated, or at least that's the rumor. I'll believe it when I see you guys getting your diplomas on Thursday night. But congrats to you. You're right back there. Hi. Love you guys. You're great. There's a party at their place. Go hang out, have fun, eat food, and bring them a little something. That's next Sunday. The information and details are in your bulletin. Last two things are this. Our youth group, we do meet tonight. It's entitled A Good Word Night, and all the students already, what does that mean? What are we doing? Come tonight. You'll find out. We'll be putting some good words out there, and we'll show you exactly what that means tonight at 6 p.m. And then I have an update for you. We put out a 24-hour prayer chain sign up several weeks ago when our chairman of the elders, Steve Levine, wound up in ICU, was not doing well with COVID. Not that he's doing great today, but I do have a great update. Steve is no longer in the ICU at the hospital. He's been moved to a rehab facility. It's an acute care. It's still a slow process, but the fact that he was even improved enough and well enough to make that move is fantastic. So thank you for your prayers. Keep that up. And on top of it, we'd added prayer for Doris Morris, Rusty's wife. They both got COVID. Doris was on a ventilator. She's home as well. So that's great to give positive updates, isn't it? So thank you for your prayers. Thank you for all of that. We'll keep you updated as other big moments come around, but those were some big ones we wanted to share for sure. That's all I have for today for announcements. I'm just going to make a general assumption that the praise team is going to want you up to stand to sing. So let's stand up, continue to engage our hearts with the worship music with our God, and we'll hand it back to our team.
Thanks, Tony. We love having you guys here and just singing and worshiping with us. If you're clicking and watching online, it just means so much to us. And of course, that's not the point. You know, it's bringing praise to God and learning about God and getting closer to Him. But that just thrills us. This next song is one of my favorites. It was written by a 22-year-old pastor in the year 1758. I'm not kidding on that.
Every blessing, tune my heart to sing like Rivers of mercy never ceasing, call for songs of loudest praise. Teach me some melodious sonnet sung by flaming tongues above. Praise the mount I fixed upon it, mount of thy redeeming love. Here I raise my Ebenezer, hither by thy help I'm come, and I hope by thy good pleasure safely to arrive at home. Jesus sought me when a stranger, wandering from the fold of God, here to rescue me from danger, interpose his precious blood. Oh, to grace, how great a debtor daily I'm constrained to be. Let thy goodness, like a fetter, bind my wandering heart to thee. Prone to wander, Lord, I feel it. Prone to leave the God I love. Here's my heart, Lord, take and seal it for thy courts above. Here's my heart, Lord, take and seal it for thy courts above.
This next song is a new song. And, a very simple message. And I enjoy intellectual things. I love reading and things that are, intellectually stimulating about faith, doctrine, the scriptures, and the Bible. And sometimes some of the most powerful things can be the simplest. When you're struck, right? When you realize, despite some of the dark valleys you've come through or the heartache you've endured, that God is good. And he's been good for you all along. Sometimes that's the most powerful truth that hits us. So I love this song, and it's ask you to listen and immerse yourself and sing along with us.
All my days 21:9 says, Hosanna to the Son of David. Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. Hosanna in the highest. I see the King of Glory coming on the clouds of fire. The whole earth shakes, the whole earth shakes. I see His love and mercy washing over all our sin. The people sing, the people sing. Hosanna, Hosanna, Hosanna in the highest. Hosanna, Hosanna, Hosanna in the highest. I see generation rising up to take the place. The selfless faith, the selfless faith. I see a near revival, stirring as we pray and sing. On our knees, we're on our knees. Hosanna, Hosanna, Hosanna in the highest. Hosanna, Hosanna, Hosanna in the Show me how to love like you love me. Break my heart for what breaks yours. Everything I am for your kingdom's cause. As I walk from earth into eternity. Hosanna, Hosanna in the highest. Hosanna, Hosanna, Hosanna in the highest. Hosanna in the highest.
Amen, church. Have a seat.
Well, good morning again. We are entering our scripture study portion of the worship service today. Sometimes we call it a sermon, sometimes we call it a study. In the youth ministry world, we call it a talk sometimes, or storytelling. We're going to be continuing the Keep the Faith series that we just recently started here on Sunday mornings at Centerpoint. There's going to be a little bit of a twist to it, though. We had this in studies in Hebrews, and today's study isn't actually in Hebrews. Now, the series that we're going through currently was Hebrews 11 and Hebrews 12. I realized that the characters I was looking into had nothing to do with Hebrews, so I made a real fancy change, and there we are. We are now going to be in Judges and 2 Samuel. We are going to be engaging with you throughout the study today. There's going to be 2 or 3 different times where I'm asking for responses from you in the room and from you on the live stream. I really mean it. We're going to put the same questions that we're putting on screens and content here for our live in the room audience. We would love for you to respond out loud with words here in the room. Live stream, put something into the chat, and I want to hear and read some of your responses or hear some of your responses in the room. I find that we learn better together when we're learning with each other, not just from one person up front. This is just how I work. Maybe it's part of the youth pastor in me that I've been doing it for like 12 or 13 years. I always have to engage like 12 to 18-year-olds. I'm not treating you like one. It's just my default, okay? So we're gonna be soaking into some studies here, some very legendary stories. We're gonna be looking at the stories of Samson and Shammah. Those are the 2 that I'm going to be looking at today. We're going to be breaking our series or our study today in half. We're going to be looking at how are we like them. And if you know anything about Samson or Shammah right off the top of your head, you may think you're nothing like them, but I promise there are similarities there. We're going to see how they're similar to each other, but more importantly, how we're like them. And then how can we learn from these characters that we're going to look at here in the Old Testament? There's really some interesting stuff. So if you have handwritten notes, stuff for the outline, be sure to take advantage of that. And we'll kind of just hop into our series here. If you see me glancing this way, that's me engaging with our online audience. But let's hop into the study here in Judges. This is going to be looking at the story of Samson. Judges 15, verse 7 begins this way. "Because you did this," Samson vowed, "I won't take rest until I take my revenge on you." Now I'm going to pause right there, and we're going to get back into this in just a second. This feels a little bit like, you ever watched a movie that's part of a series of movies? You know, Lord of the Rings or Star Wars or the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Like, you can hop in, and you can just kind of tell that something else had already happened. And you need your buddy there. It's like, hey, what's going on? I'm going to give you the Tony Martinez version of catching you up from the last movie into this part of the next movie of the series of stories of Samson. What he's referencing there, because you did this, I won't rest until I take my revenge. Samson's complex. Read the story of Samson. He's an amazing individual in lots of ways, even from the circumstances surrounding his birth all the way through his death. No shortage of drama and intrigue. What had just recently happened was he goes up to his dad. He's like, "Hey, Dad, I found me someone who I want to marry. It's a Philistine, and go get the traditional father of the groom preparations in place." Culturally, this was no bueno. These are people that were oppressive to them, that hated them, that they were their enemies, and most importantly, their values were not shared. They did not worship their God. They worshiped others, and it was a complete mismatch. What Samson had made his mind up. Dad's like, you know what? I've learned. I'm going to do what we're going to do, and we'll get this going. The wedding's going to come, the party. It almost feels like it was the rehearsal dinner, and Samson likes to have a good time and kind of make the scenario best to him. He throws out a riddle to the people who are at the party, and he offers a prize. If you can get this riddle correct, there's like 30 dudes. He's like, all right, if you guys, any one of you 30 can get the answer to this riddle correct, I'll give all 30 of you a brand new set of clothes. And they're like, oh, okay. And if you all can't get it right, you all will have to give me a set of clothes, and I will get 30 sets of clothes. Here's the riddle. Gives them the riddle, and it's a multiple-day thing. Not too different from weddings now, but a little bit longer and more in-depth. And he gets to the very, very end, and his soon-to-be wife finally breaks through to him because they were bugging her. Like, give us the answer. Get the answer from him. Come on. She finally gets it out of him. She shares it with them. They come back around to Samson all excited, and they tell him the right answer, and he's ticked. He's ticked off, and he wasn't very nice. You wouldn't have gotten the answer if you hadn't been plowing with my heifer. Okay, bud, calm down. But he doesn't calm down. He's like, fine, Fair is fair. You got the answer. I owe you 30 cents of clothes. He goes into town, kills 30 dudes, takes their clothes, and gives it to them. And then just it's just a bad deal. He's mad. He's angry, and he leaves his wife there in her hometown. Come to find out, everybody thought that he was done with her, so she was married to the best man. Yeah, no drama at all, right? He calms down, he gets over it, he's gonna go back, gonna go see my wife, and the dad's like, she got married off to the best man. You what? And poof, here we go, right? So he's not feeling friendly, as you can tell. I won't take rest until I get my revenge on you. So he attacked the Philistines with great fury, killed many of them, and went to go live in a cave in the rock of Etam. Like I said, complex guy. The Philistines retaliated. They set up camp in Judah and spread out near the town of Lehi. And the men of Judah asked the Philistines, why are you attacking us? Valid question. We didn't mess up the party and we didn't kill people. The Philistines replied, we've come to capture Samson. We've come to pay him back for what he did to us. Dudes, you punch me, I'm going to punch you, and here we go. So 3,000 men of Judah, who are now dealing with Samson's mess, go down to Samson to get him at the cave, and they went to him and they said, don't you realize that they rule over us? You can just hear it, right? Come on, man. You're literally about to kill us. It's like, what are you doing? And Samson replied, I only did to them what they did to me. Does that sound like your kids ever? Like ever? Grown men, goodness. But the men of Judah told us, like, listen, we've come to tie you up and hand you over to the Philistines. We're done with your mess becoming ours. All right. But Samson says, promise that you won't kill me yourselves. We'll only tie you up and hand you over to the Philistines. You can just tell, they just want to be done. We won't kill you. So they tied him up with 2 new ropes because they were supposed to be stronger, brought him back up from the rock. Samson arrives at Lehi, and the Philistines came shouting in triumph. Like, ha, we got him. Spirit of the Lord came powerfully upon Samson. He snapped the ropes from his arms as if they were burnt strands of flax. They fell off his wrists, and he found a jawbone of a recently killed donkey. Picks it up and kills 1,000 Philistines with it. Seems like the other 2,000 ran. I don't blame them. Samson says, hey, with the jawbone of a donkey, I've piled them up in heaps. With the jawbone of a donkey, I've killed 1,000 men. He finishes his boasting, throws away the jawbone, and the place is now known as Jawbone Hill. Wow, okay. This is one of those moments, whether it's with teenagers or otherwise, I routinely will reference something to the effect of what the Bible is and what it is not. Okay, so the Bible is not exhaustive. Let's start there. It does not talk about all of the things, okay? The Bible is 100% accurate and 100% true. The Bible is 100% inspired by God himself, and it is a living document that changes lives even to today. The Bible is not affirming of everything that you find inside of it. Goes without saying, I don't think God is affirming this course of action with Samson, okay? He used him, and we'll talk a little more about that later, and he was a leader, influential leader for God's people. He's one of their judges. But this is not in any way, shape, or form to say, well, if you got issues, you'll figure it out, go find a bone. No. This is a whole set of problems that Samson is in the middle of creating and making worse. But this story of one man versus 3,000 finds something on the ground and bashes 1,000 heads in, I don't care what the backstory is, that is legendary status. That is a ridiculously amazing warrior. And in this culture, people, they told this story for a long old time. So there's legend story number 1, right? Now here's question number 1 for you. I would like you to think in your mind of an example of a legend that's just known by name. And in this culture, you say Samson, they knew. And this wasn't the only legendary act of Samson, by the way. There's definitely more. But in your mind, can you think of a person, an event, a location, a place, and these can be fictional or non-fictional, that when you just say it, most people are like, yeah, I've heard that story before. I know some of the details about that. I remember when I first heard about that. So have that kind of percolating in your mind a little bit, because I'm going to ask for your responses out loud. Same with the live stream. Type something in. You can even put it in now, and I'll read some of the ones that I get on here from my device. But as that brews in your brain, I've never said that before, brewing in your brain. Let's read the second legend. Okay, so we got the one legend of Samson. Let's read the second one, and it's only 2 verses long. Really, really short, but still really, really awesome. 2 Samuel chapter 23, verse 11. This is talking about a man named Shammah. Next in rank was Shammah. That little phrase there refers us to what's happening a couple verses prior. He was a member of this elite, famed fighting force called David's Mighty Men. And they led the other elite warriors of Israel. But these guys were the elite of the elite. This guy was ranked 3rd. He's incredible. They gave a little information about his family and where he's from. One time, the Philistines gathered at Lehi and attacked the Israelites in a field full of lentils. Can't prove this, but I really feel like maybe, just maybe, the idiom of it not being worth a hill of beans could be rooted in this story. Let's keep listening. The Israelite army fled, but Shammah held his ground in the middle of the field and beat back the Philistines. So the Lord brought about a great victory. That's really, really cool. So here's Shammah, two-verse narrative. He's with a group of people. They see the enemy coming, and everyone else runs. And he's the only one left, and he stands. And he beats the entire enemy force back. What a dude. That's awesome. And it's because of God, the scriptures say, that this victory came to be. So I'm curious, did you have any ideas or examples that came to your mind of a legendary person, a place, an event, real or fictional, that came to mind that you'd be willing to share for the room to hear? Give me an example or 2 or 3 of a legend. Yes, over here. Superman leaping tall buildings with a single. I like that. Good one. Superman. Yes. Okay, so I thought of Elway too. I'm born in 85, grew up here. I'm a lifelong Broncos fan. So the drive is huge, especially if you're from the Midwest, because they hate Elway for that. Or Elway in the helicopter play in Super Bowl 32. Okay, so sports reference, comics, I like that. Is there anything else in the room? I saw a couple online. We'll read those in a second. Let me give you 1 or 2 more here. Landing on the moon. That's a legendary event and moment. That's a great one. Let's get 1 more at least. Say it again? Audie Murphy, I'm not getting that one. See? Oh, shame on me. My goodness. War hero. That's fantastic. World War II. Let's read a couple that we have here. We've heard references. I was hoping somebody would reference this. Pearl Harbor. Now, that day is legendary, but for all the wrong reasons, right? At least the way that felt. With that, in a more modern context for my generation, is September 11th. Both of them will carry that label of living in infamy, right? So moments like that for sure. And the Tet Offensive, another military reference there. There are so many people and instances and stories that this is common for us. They live on because they are told, and they just have details, circumstances, individuals that draw us in. That's exactly what we're looking at today with Samson and Shammah. What we want to look at for this first half of the story is, what do they have in common? That's our first half. In the outline there, that's what we're going to be filling in some blanks. I felt like a kid again when I was writing this out and studying and preparing. It felt like I was in Sesame Street. Today's episode is brought to you by the letter S. Samson and no? Okay. All right. I tried. I mean, that's the simplest of commonalities. Here's the first one, and this is the right starting point. Their victories came from God's hand instead of their own. Both of them, very clearly in the narrative of those stories, it was referenced in this way. It's not just like, oh, it's in the Bible, it must have, come from God. All things are from God, sure. But look at the screen here, whether you're watching online or in the room. This is how it was referenced, that the Spirit of the Lord came upon Samson. What that tells me then is that Spirit in that way did not exist in Samson's life until that moment. Now, he was nuts anyway, but he went to a whole nother level with the empowering of God's Spirit. And then that last phrase there is coming straight out of 2 Samuel in reference to Shammah's story. That was like the very closing line of the movie, if you will, or the closing credits, and it comes on screen with the story of Shammah. The Lord brought about a great victory. These are things that both of these had in common. I had this thought come to mind. I wanted to share it with you. It's not in your outline, but we can see that really, really well in those stories because it's literally written into the script, right? For you and for me, for us today in our modern world, it is very difficult to see God's hand on your victory when your hands were on it as it happened. I'm not knocking you for that. You are the one living your life. So it's not like, if you just detach from your life a little bit, you'd see God more often. No. This is your story. So that's not a negative. It's just a natural obstacle that you and I have to overcome when we are fully involved in scenarios and putting forth our efforts and things seem to go well. It's just easier either to not think of or even notice God's hand in our victories. Be careful of that. Don't think that it's all about what you've done or not done that has provided success. I know that may seem cliche in a church worship setting, but careful of that. That's a really important commonality to see in these stories and for our own. Here's the second commonality. Their victories defied the odds. Now, in the first story, and I'll leave that up there for a little bit, the victories defied the odds. Samson goes up against a massive crowd. It said like 3,000 men came. And then with Shammah, it doesn't give an exact number, but it's more about the fact that everyone else who was with him left. And he was the only one against the military force. Doesn't matter who you are, that's a bad scenario to end up in. Those victories completely defied the odds. We'll go ahead and put it up for you to see. He references the killing of 1,000 men. That's the body count. Again, there was more than that. And the Israelite army just left. I'm more curious about that second story. How often or how recently you have felt like Shammah in that you felt abandoned. It doesn't matter the numerical odds, but when you are in a situation of significance and then you feel abandoned and alone, it's never going to look like success is coming quickly, does it? These men definitely had that in common in their stories. They completely defied the odds. Number 3, in how they are the same in their stories and likely maybe the same in some of your stories. Their victories were against a familiar enemy. Their victories were against a familiar enemy or the same enemy. Familiar, I wrote because they referenced it in the story of Samson. Like, don't you know they rule over us? This isn't new. This is a huge problem, a consistent problem in our culture, in our community, and in our neighborhood. Like, what are you doing, man? But I'd be curious to hear from you. Can you think of an example of a struggle or an enemy that you have faced that just won't go away? Real quick, no names, please. Especially if they're here. No, that's probably not the case. But like a scenario, a person, maybe a struggle. If it is a person, maybe reference how it is that they're in their life. Next door neighbor just won't turn their music down, and that kind of a thing. And if you're online, hop in there as well. Share a little example of an enemy or struggle that just won't go away. I'll circle to the room audience here soon. But in this story and in the passages, this is what it looked like. Just to put it side by side for you to see. We'll put it up on the screen here. It was the Philistines. This is a famed enemy of Israel that was around for quite a bit of their story. Same people that David and Goliath fight kind of came from. Same combat, same issues. They were invading the space in Judah, being really aggressive and invasive and stirring up trouble. Not that there wasn't trouble before, but then with Shammah and his crew, that's the enemy force that came up to them. And here we go. We've got a problem. It's the Philistines. There's something that is grinding and almost deflating about when you and I are facing the same enemy again. The same circumstance hasn't ended. We haven't found a way out. It hasn't been resolved. And after a while, I don't care who you are or what the person or scenario or issue is, it can beat you into the ground. And if you're feeling that today, I want to just take a second to validate you, whether you're in the room or you're watching somewhere else. Welcome to being a human being. We are not judging you for that. Sometimes we have long-term battles, frequent fights with the exact same enemy. Because, guys, remember, all of that is rooted from the ultimate enemy, isn't it? And that's why Jesus, fought the fight that he did and came to earth for us. And we'll talk more about that in a little while. But a lot of that is rooted from the ancient old enemy of the devil himself. I'm curious, have you had an example come to your mind of an example of a struggle, an enemy, an issue that just won't go away? This can be for your life or people that you know. Give me an example or two of a struggle that just doesn't go away or hasn't yet. I know this is a little more personal now, but I'd love to get one or two. Now, when you go and scratch like this, that's dangerous. I saw this. Teachers, you know what I'm talking about. I'll come to you in a second. Right over here. Yes, chronic health issues. And that can be a wide smattering of things. But wow, talk about a draining and even debilitating thing to have to go through. Yes, there's something over here? Grief. Rejection. Boy, rejection, that can be a one-time thing. It can echo for the rest of your life, that one moment. And then you have an awareness and a sensitivity to it that the next time it comes around, it just rebounds the whole thing all over again inside your heart and inside your mind. That's a great example of one. Any others? I don't want to, yes. Disrespect at work. Man, your workplace environment can break you almost, can't it? It doesn't matter where you work. I tell you, this pastor that I work with here, no, I'm kidding. I know it's recorded. And if you're online, Paul, I'm not even sorry. I just wanted to have some fun. Hope you're enjoying Florida. The workplace, that can really, really get on you and be a hard thing to navigate. And let's see here. Of course, I had it right there on my screen and it ran away. We don't have anything yet on the YouTube chat. I will circle back if we get another one in. There's a lot of different things that can be repeat, continual, long-term, over and over and over again. Take heart. You're in the company of legends. Take heart that when God writes down into the New Testament scriptures for us, there's no temptation, struggle, trial, test. There's none of those that are uncommon to man, and God is faithful. And with that test and struggle and temptation and trial and test, he will make a way of escape so that you can bear it. I'm not going to say that if you pray a certain way or up your faith the XYZ% that it's going to dissolve out of your life today and victory will be had. I can't tell you that. That's not my knowledge and that's not my role. But I do know God's role in being present in every single one. So take heart. That wasn't in my notes, but it was definitely something that fit for sure. Last thing in commonality between the two stories and legends, and looking for commonality in your stories as well, their victories were in the same place, the same literal location. This is the detail that birthed this entire study for me. I've been chewing on this for a few weeks because I was talking with a pastor friend of mine, ironically, in Florida. And it was a few years ago that God helped me notice this, and it completely revolutionized the way I see these two stories. So this is the last one for today to bug you, and then we'll kind of keep moving along. I'd like you to think of a literal location, okay? A literal location where struggles are more often and they're more intense, or either or. Maybe it happens more often here, or it's more intense, or both. If you can think of a location to share, because these responses have been great, I think it's really kind of like making this more personal and more real life. I want to show you this location from Samson and Shammah here real quick. Let's put it up on screen. Samson arrived at Lehi. That's the location. Samson arrived at Lehi, and here come the Philistines to get bashed with a bone. And one time, the Philistines gathered at Lehi and attacked the Israelites. So here's what's interesting. Samson and Shammah were born, by my study, 100 years apart from each other. I talked about this word of legends and stories and tales. There is no way that Shammah, who was born after Samson, there's no way that Shammah didn't know the story of Jawbone Hill, right? Not much different than maybe Bunker Hill, right? Gettysburg, these locations, these conquests, these battles. I mean, for crying out loud, remember the Alamo. There are just places that things happened there. Jawbone Hill was one of them, and that was at Lehi. What's cool about what happened for them, they found victory, but victory was not found sitting on a picnic blanket. There was bloodshed at Lehi. There was the highest of stakes. It took everything that was inside them and then literally a God-sized assist to get this victory. It was victory, yes, and it should be celebrated and remembered and tell the story of Lehi for a long, long time, but it was far from easy and calm and tranquil. At this location, death has occurred. Violence, invasion, struggle, and a fight for life. And I believe that Shammah knew exactly where he was standing. We'll get to that in a bit. But Lehi, although it was a place of victory, was a place of battle and struggle as well. Did you have an example come to your mind? A literal place where struggle happens more often or it happens a little more intensely? Any ideas in the room? I want to at least get a couple, and we will kind of move into our second half of our study. I'll go back here, and then I'll come to you. Go ahead. A little bit louder, please. The Mideast. Oh, great. I hadn't thought of it that way. The Middle East. Yeah, absolutely. I don't know that there's been peace forever. That's a God promise happening later. It hasn't happened yet, for sure. Yes, go ahead. Bermuda, okay, totally different twist. But yeah, frequent issues. There's a reason the Bermuda Triangle is known as the Bermuda Triangle, for sure. Go ahead. Right? She said in the car. You can't get behind the wheel and drive a route of any length of time and not have an issue. I will raise my hand in confession. My kids would tell you that. Yes, or were you raising your hand with me in confession? See, I'm telling you, it's dangerous. You gotta time it. Yes, Misha. Schools. A lot of different ways on that too. We know all too well here in Colorado the kind of intense struggle that can happen on a school campus. But just in the daily for students, wow. I love what Greg Steer, the founder of Dare to Share Ministries, I've heard him say many times over and over. It's not that we're just trying to save teenagers, talking in the youth ministry world, from the hell that they're going to, but we also want to help with God's impact, save them from the hell that they're going through. And sometimes that living hell is on a school campus. That's a great example. Any others? Yes. Whew, the legal system. My goodness, going into the courtroom and justice and fairness are not always the same thing. The full understanding of truth and how the judgments are applied, for sure. One last one, go ahead.
I hate to say this, but the church.
Yeah. The church. Whether you are trying to keep yourself together in one way and by default you're falsifying yourself, and that's a struggle. Or let's just be real, guys. Y'all are messed up. Me too. We're people. Okay, so talking about talking in the pastoral world or circles of conversations, we joke all the time as pastors. Churches would be great if it weren't for the people inside of them. But guess what? People. That's why God described the pastors as shepherds. We can't really complain about the fact that we smell like sheep. It's our place. And guess what? In this place, we have pain, don't we? We have our struggles, we have our issues, and that's a normal human thing. Now, so there's the commonalities. And I find that finding common ground, it does a few things. First of all, it really draws you in. You don't like to feel completely unrelatable to something that's being taught or referenced or the people that you're with. When you feel like you can't connect with them, it's hard to really be engaged and to stay that way. I hope that you're able to find something from those legends that you can identify with where you're like them, or perhaps the things that you heard from the room, hearing and seeing those things really makes a big difference. So what can we learn from them? How can we learn from these legendary tales from both of these men? And we're going to look at 4, and they show up in both of these stories. What we can learn from these legends. The first truth is this. Number 1, you never know who will be inspired by your actions. That's important. That's important. You never know who will be inspired by your actions. What I'm trying to remind and encourage you about right now is that you should never devalue your actions, okay? You don't, but I'm not this, or I can't that, or I don't this. I don't care. You have value, and influence and significance right now, not yesterday or someday. You have significance right now. I'm referencing specifically this connecting point between Samson and Shammah. Standing there that day on Jawbone Hill and getting the victory with a bone off the ground and bashing heads in. And then I'm convinced beyond the shadow of a doubt that Shammah knew exactly where he was standing. It's like, no, this is a place of our God's victory. Samson had God come upon him and give him victory that day. I don't care if other people have abandoned me. I'm going to stand here, and God, you got, back me up. This is a place where I'm not backing down. And if you need to be kind of charged up that way and don't back down, please take that element of the story. I don't think Samson knew Shammah. I guarantee you this, by the time that happened, Samson was already buried and dead. He was born 100 years after the fact. But in that moment, that day, legend was birthed and it carried for generations. Look at us, we're still talking about it. You never know who will be inspired by your actions. Number two, something we can learn from these legends. Sometimes, and this is just a good reminder, sometimes an enemy has to be defeated more than once. If you see and experience and achieve victory in your life in an area, and then later in your life in that area, you're fighting for it again, don't be discouraged. Don't quit. Don't look at yourself and identify like, well, I never really got victory to begin with, or I'm officially a failure, or I've messed it up, or I'll never get victory again. That is false. Okay? The true and real victory, source of that, is always from God anyway. So if God was going to get ultimate victory by sending his son on the cross, but left us here to live this human life, just know you're going to have to get victory again. This is normal. This is part of the path and purpose that God has for you and for me. Don't you dare ever believe the lie of the enemy that if I have to fight this victory again, I never had it to begin with. Or if I have to fight it again, I can't get it this time. Or if I fight it again, it's not worth fighting this time. I'm just going to give up. Don't believe it. These men didn't. The Philistines were legendary enemies. They were almost like rivals. I kind of bring that up in a sports lens, because I look at life through sports. Sometimes those rivals will make the opponent or the opposing team even better, and their victory even greater. It's not that they're like, yay, I'm glad we get to go against this opponent, but when they really start looking back and thinking about it, the victory and the full experience would not have been what it was were it not for who or what we fought against. And it made the victory that much sweeter. I don't know what your enemy is that you're fighting again and again and again. God's victory will come in his time and in his way. Sometimes it's against the same enemy. Number three, I really like this one. It's just natural human behavior, but it yielded something really great. Stories become legends because they are told. I know, not real deep consequence, right? But here's the thing, tell your story and listen to the stories of others. You have a story worth telling. You have a story worth listening to. And so do they. Listen to people's stories. They may be so different from you. What could I possibly hear or learn or experience from them? Exactly. You may just need a completely different angle. So here it comes, ready? The pastoral office shameless plug. Go connect with a life group, okay? It's not going to happen here on Sunday mornings. It's just not. It's time, intentionality, and being with exposure and time with other people. You can't engage with everyone. We have a limited bandwidth in our lives and of ourselves. But I tell you what, learning and seeing and understanding the stories of others will enrich you. You will gain from hearing about the stories of others, especially followers of Christ. And you, again, can inspire others and do the same. It's not the legend of Tony. It's not the legend of Chad, I'll pick on you. It's about Tony's God in Tony's story. And that's worth telling. Tell your story. It's a good one to be told. Final one is this, something that we can learn from the legends, and we'll wrap things up today. And this is really focused on just the one out of the two. Just because your story has a stain, it doesn't have to be erased. I want to say that again. Just because your story has a stain, it doesn't mean it has to be erased. And who I'm referring to in particular is Samson. Now, we talked earlier about Samson and how he just has, he has a lot in him and in his story. But this man was far from a consistent example of how to live a life that honored Jehovah. His life was far from consistent on how to lead as a leader and a leader of Jehovah's people. Later on, he got involved with another woman, another Philistine, and the short version of it is she found not just the secret riddle answer, she found out the secret answer to his superhuman strength. It was locked into his hair being cut. She cuts his hair, calls in the Philistines, and they finally capture their enemy champion. And they gouge his eyes out. They lock him up in chains, and they use him literally as a mule to grind meal for their community. One day there's a ginormous party going on with the enemy and the Philistines, and all their people are there, and they bring Samson out to mock him, to display him as a show of their strength and their victory. And so there he is, humiliated, abused, prisoner, and stuck. A man who had accomplished amazing, amazing things and was now just discarded. Worship team, you can come up whenever you guys are ready. Like, this man was just in the depths of it. This was a person who was at the height. This was the legend. This was the Samson of Jawbone Hill. And now he's nothing. His story was filled and covered with stains. He had moments of success and victory, but the way it ended and the dips and the chasms in the middle, they were significant. We have all felt like that at least once, haven't we? You may feel like that right now. Look here again. Look here. God loves you. God loves you so much that he gave his son to die, to be broken, to be abused, to be humiliated, to be taken by the enemy and displayed for all to see as like, ha, we've got him. We're done with him. Not too different from Samson. Samson begged God in that moment, God, will you please come back? I'm broken, I've messed this up, I get it, I deserve what I'm getting, but give me one more moment of your power, give me one more chance to do right. And God answered his prayer, and he says, let me die with the Philistines. And he literally ripped the house down. And so then there was Jesus, broken and bruised and naked and destroyed, and he was going through a separation too, and he says, God, why have you left me? But he conquered the enemy that day too with his death. And then 3 days later, he kicked the grave wide open and said, if you believe in me, you will have everlasting life. It doesn't matter about the stains in your past, the stains in your present. You matter now. And if today is just a realization of like, I need to believe that finally. It's not about me fixing myself or grasping heaven's front door. I need to believe. If you've never believed in Jesus as your salvation, I encourage you to do that today. It's literally as simple as faith. Only in him and nothing in you. Today, if it's not that you need to receive that gift, maybe you need to just release today. Maybe it is a stain or a struggle of your right now, of your far distant past that's echoing again, and it's becoming louder and louder and louder, and you're back with that familiar enemy. You're back in that familiar place. I want you today to release that. You're not claiming your victory, you're claiming Christ's in this moment. Today, let's learn from legends. We're not standing on Jawbone Hill, but we're standing in the presence of God. So I'm going to pray, and then we're going to stand and rise into God's presence. We're going to sing about this amazing, amazing God that we have and connect with him again. Matter of fact, I'm going to call an audible on our sound team. If you could, just for this closing song, if you could kill house lights. And I want this to be all about just what, I don't want it about the people around you. You and God. Connecting with him and releasing your struggle and finding his presence today. Let's pray. God, today, we need to learn from legends. Some of us right now are in legendary struggles. And so today we reach for you. If there are those in this room today that need to receive you for the first time, I pray they'll do that right here in the quietness of their heart, and they will believe in Jesus to be rescued. And if they need to be rescued again, they'll call out again. Thank you for putting these imperfect legends into the story of your word. I pray that you will walk with us this week, and we will see your presence. In Jesus' name, amen.
Will you stand with us?
Water you turned into wine. Open the eyes of the blind. There's no one like you. None like you. Into the darkness you shine. Out of the ashes we rise. There's no one like you. None like you. 'Cause our God is greater. Our God is stronger. God, you are higher than any other. Our God is healer. Awesome in power. Our God. Our God.
check us out online, plug in and connect with us. We'll see you next week.